Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks for tuning back in. I figured instead of doing a stupid video, we might as well do something just outright stupid, supervised by Ichabod the safety dog. And what we're going to do is we are going to try and cure up this 1500 degree PJ1 paint on one of the tubes for the VFR. I don't remember which side this is from. I guess it doesn't matter. I read this once on a forum somewhere a few years back where somebody was very successful in using a heat gun over a period of time, as you have, essentially see it set up, pumping hot air through it and curing up the paint. Now the can says 600 degrees at 1 hour, or typically what would happen over a period of heat cycles when it's just being, used in its appropriate manner as an exhaust system. So we're going to try to duplicate that and heat it up and see what happens, because I know it's going to smoke a little bit, but you never know. Might work somewhat, might at least get it close so it's a little bit more resistant to chipping and scratching as I assemble it. So let's give it a shot. First we'll do is we'll shoot it with the temperature gun, show you where it is right now. 51, pretty cold down here today, Florida. Had a front come through, and so yeah. The environment's not our friend when it comes to trying this, but hey, what the hell, worst case scenario is I got to repaint it, so I'm just going to give it a shot and see what happens. Let me get you set up so I have some hands free, and then we'll take a look at it. Now admittedly, this setup is about as stable as my ex-wife, so it may may collapse, but I'm going to turn the heat way up and put it on high. We're just going to let her eat and see what happens. Did I turn it the wrong way? I did. I turned it all the way down. Dummy. About 100 degrees there. What is that, about 95 at the end? Alright, now I got it turned the right way. I can't remember how this thing works. Hardly ever use it. 113. 119, 117. It's probably pulling cool air in it as it flows it, but that's okay. 145. I'm going to start to smell it off gassing a little bit. This early morning light isn't helping. Just let it go for a while and we'll come back. We're up to, right in the middle there, we're up to about 250. Well, it's bouncing around, I don't know. 253, 230, 229. Starting to get a little smokage off of it. 220, 230, I don't know, something like that. Bouncing around. It looks like the max we're going to get out of this setup is about 230, maybe 250. But that might be enough to at least start to set it up, cure it up. We'll leave it for about an hour, assuming that the heat gun doesn't crash and burn, but it doesn't seem very hot. It's like about 60 degrees on the outside of the case. That's not bad. Really need a straight shot at it, I think. Yeah, 220 to 230 it bounces up to about the hottest. You never know, it might set it up pretty good. I'll show you another thing that it does when it's working. You'll see that it's starting to dull out now. Down here it's more shiny still. This stuff goes on kind of satiny, and it will get flat. It's supposed to be flat once it cures. You have some surface issues there. I don't know if that's going to blend out, but I don't think it really makes too much of a difference. You can see that the pitting and stuff is kind of a little bit more visible once it gets hot. I couldn't get that out, unfortunately. This material's too thin. I was afraid if I tried to grind it all smooth, I would turn spotty areas that are thin into one large area that was thin, compromise the integrity of it. So it is what it is. You know what? It seems to be working pretty good. I wonder if I should cure it like this and then hit it again and then do it over. It might be an idea to try it. It's kind of experimentation at this point. This end here is just not getting hot, and I think I mentioned before it's probably because it's sucking air in. So I put some aluminium foil there to try to limit that, and oh yeah, that definitely works, because I was about 170 there before, and now it's in the 200s. So I'm really getting some good heat through here now. Sorry about the light. Oh yeah, that was definitely a problem. I should have thought of that earlier. Yeah, we're in if it levels out, almost 200 degrees at the end now. Almost 300 in the middle here. Look at that. That's perfect. That really made a difference. Now, in reality's sake, I'm sure that this is not designed, obviously, for this kind of duty. You know, these are supposed to be for intermittent duty cycles, obviously, but I don't have many minutes or hours on this tool. I don't use it very often, so I think it'll survive. It's not getting warm at all. You know, the outside of it's cold, so I'm not too worried about it. Oh yeah, that helped a lot. Wow. Like I said, I wish I had thought of that before, but it doesn't matter. I thought about it eventually. And it's kind of cool. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it gets a little blotchy, you know, and says it starts to flatten out. This side you might be able to catch it a little bit better. It's definitely evening out. Now, these areas here, again, that's where all that corrosion was. We had a lot of pitting there. So, you know, when you're painting anything, it might even be just a, you know, house paint or walls, you know, things like that. When you have differences in visible surface after you paint it, it's not necessarily the paint, it's the surface underneath, you know, because of the texture. So I wanted to kind of see what that would do. And so naturally I'm going to repaint this, at least parts of it. Maybe the whole thing, most likely the whole thing. And we'll try it again at a later time. But it gives me an idea what it's going to look like. If I can get it looking more like that all the way down, well, I think I'd be shitting in high cotton, basically. That'll work pretty well. Yeah, interesting. I went ahead and brought over the 30 amp for the... I only have a 120 welder, but it welds like 220 almost. But anyway, my cord reel, which is a recycled fire department, actually, cord reel got ripped off the ceiling at one time. I don't know, 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. They don't reuse them when that happens because they can't trust them for trickle charging the critical systems on the equipment, so the apparatus. So they're getting ready to throw them out, so I just said, well, I'll take them, because I was on duty that day. And I had to, you know, rebuild it, basically. All the plastic was broken and things like that. But I got one over there as well. But this is starting to get warm, and I don't want to put any severe load on the contacts inside there and start this thing on fire, and then, you know, I don't like that. So this will be a better power source for it. Seems to be running a little better too. It's probably starving for a little current running through this thing because it pulls some current. I don't know how many watts this thing is, but we could calculate that out if we knew. Let's see where we're at. Let's see, 260, 280, let's say 270, or average it out. Interesting. A little bit of smoke coming off it again. Kind of cool though. I've never done this before, but I think this is a viable option for getting these things set up at least somewhat. Because number one, you can see the areas that are going to need to be addressed, like those. And number two, it gets it hard, because, you know, getting hard is good. So you don't have to have so much cure time on the vehicle, and you know, you get scratched up and stuff. This makes it a lot more durable. It's my opinion. Yeah, a little over 300 there. Yeah, that's working pretty good, so we'll just let it go. I gotta be honest with you. It smells like deep fryer oil, like peanut oil, like when I'm doing a turkey. That's what this thing smells like. Yeah, it's quite pleasant, actually. Not that I'm breathing the fumes in, but it's interesting that it emits that kind of odor. I don't know. Maybe it's made of peanut oil? I doubt it. He is like, yeah, I don't think so. This is kind of sketchy. While we're at it, I'll tell you about these jack stands, whatever you want to call them. I made these for my lift. When the lift is in the, sorry, it's a mess. When the lift is in the highest position, these fit underneath there, and I can adjust them up on the sides, you know, the extensions. And that's for, like, if I have something really, really heavy on it. And I never used them. This is the first time I'm using them on anything. But one day I was like, I'm just going to make a couple of these, and pulled out some scrap and welded it up. And these are threaded rod from some of those, spring compressors for McPherson struts. A buddy of mine gave me a pair of those tools because he used to have a Miata, and he said he did the springs on it one time and said never again. He doesn't have that car anymore, and gave them to me a couple of years ago. So I threw away the rest of it and just used the threaded rod, and yeah, so at least they're working for something. But that's what those were initially intended to be used for, and I guess I can use them for other things like this. But yeah, they work pretty good. Got about 30 minutes on it now. Okay, we got about an hour on it. Let's take a look at the temperature before I shut it off. It's warming up out here a little bit. I don't know, 280s, 300s, mostly 280, 290, something like that. A little bit more consistent across the whole thing too, which is nice. Maybe that's the 260s, yeah. Alright, so let's shut it off. We got an hour on it. We're going to let it cool off. We'll take a quick look at it, but I'm going to set up another one. I want to do the, I don't know what you want to call it, the back of the can itself. Those ones in the other video that I did the metal work on. The trumpet end, I guess it would be called. I don't know, but let's set that one up after this one cools a bit. But then we'll take a look at this one in more detail while that one's cooking. Okay. Now, folks, that ain't too awful bad. I'm going to leave this alone. I'm not going to put any more paint on it at all. I figure if I did, the uncured or not fully cured areas underneath are going to try to compromise any top coat. So, yeah, I'm okay with this. I mean, it's old, it's pitted, it's got some stains on it or etches, but overall, that's a hell of a lot better than it was. Okay, so now we're going to try this one. The can. This is the one I did fix in that last video on doing the metal work. What I did was I made a end for it that's the same as the inlet, which is 2 inches, and that's a 2-inch hole roughly. And that way it'll kind of build the heat up evenly, because that big opening is not going to allow a lot of heat build up. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one set up, and we'll take a look at how that progresses at least. Well, the light sucks, but I got to do this now. I got other things I got to get done today. But it is warmer out, and so that's going to help us. Let's see what the ambient is on this one like we did the last one. If I can find my laser temp. There's some handprints on this one from me handling it yesterday. I'm kind of worried about that. 70 degrees. I tried wiping them off. I don't want to put anything like, even rubbing alcohol on here, because I think it'll start taking the paint off. So I'm just going to have to see what happens. I was a little less cautious with that than I should have been. So, alright. Worst case scenario is we got to do it over. I had gloves on when I did it, but may have been afterwards. I don't know. Now, this is aluminium, as you know. So, aluminium sucks up heat big time. And with that capped off in the end, it should, theoretically, do it fairly even. Pump through this small area into the larger cavity. Essentially collect in there pretty evenly, I would think. Let's try a different angle. Maybe a little bit better for you. That low light in the morning is never a friend to anybody doing any videoing. I know I have a little weak spot here. That's on the bottom. I'm not really worried about it as far as the paint goes. What did I say? Was it 70 before? It's already a 183. The end is at 200 and something already. So yeah, this one is, the material's thinner, and it's aluminium, as I said, so this one's going to come up fast. Probably won't need to leave it on a full hour, but we'll see how she looks. I think the other pipe, though, is a pretty good proof of concept that this works. About 200 degrees, 250 in the middle. I should probably go over the instructions on the paint. It's probably something I should have covered earlier. Let me show you the paint. This is a PJ1 Fast Black, 1500 degrees. Heat paint for high temperature applications. The instructions say 600 degrees for an hour to bake it off, and to do it slowly. Now, I don't know what they mean by slowly, like bring it up lower temperatures to higher. I think on that steel pipe that happened, but this one's coming up awfully fast. So I think I'm going to turn the heat down and let this come up a little slower, because we may actually be violating the instructions. So I'm going to turn the thermostat down on that a little bit and let it come up a little slower, and then we'll check the temperature, because we're already in the threes in the middle here. I just checked it before I just turned the camera back on. This is about, I don't know, let's do it at half. The detent mark there, or whatever, is about there. So, whoops, put it in the middle. Like I said, I only read about this once, and I never tried it, so it's what I wanted to do now. I figured I'd film it. But based on the steel pipe, I would say that it's pretty good proof of concept. We'll just let this go slowly here for a while. The shoe's starting to smoke there before I turned it back. I'm getting 260 in the middle now. I'm going to use the middle as a reference from now on. And then we'll let this go for 15-20 minutes, and then I'll crank it up a little bit more, and then max it out again a little later. We'll come back to that and see how it looks. I figured while we're waiting, I'd do a little rant. This is a battery, and it's for the Concourse 14. I'm changing the battery out because I believe this one in there now is, I forgot how old. I'm going to go look it up in the service records here in a minute. But it's starting to get weak. Even after I trickle charge it for a while, it doesn't seem to crank like it should. And I'm taking that big trip up to Georgia here in 9 days now. So I picked this up at Baterias Plus yesterday, and I asked specifically for the one, I think I mentioned this on another video, the gray body one. It has a black top and a gray body, because that's the American-made one. Cannot get it until like the 23rd or 24th of this month, April. And I said, that's pretty effing sad. I gotta buy the Chinesium one, and that's readily available, but I can't get the American-made one for, what, almost 12 days or something like that? I don't even know what date it is today. What is the date? Today's the 10th. Yeah, 14 days. 13, 14 days. Folks, that is just wrong. I got to do what I got to do. This is the same one that's in there now, because I couldn't get that gray-bodied US-made one back then. 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. Not that it's anything new, obviously. I believe back then they said it would be like the next day or something to get it from another store. This one, this time, they said we don't have it in any store. We'd have to order it in from probably East Bumfuck Egypt or something. But yeah, pretty sad. Figured I'd also mention, as far as these pipes go and their temperatures, I had this thing running, as you saw, probably around 300 degrees, maybe 260, 280 on the average, but in spots 300 degrees when it was cranked up. This pipe is probably not going to see that kind of temperature under normal circumstances, especially as we get closer down toward the muffler itself. Maybe up here, yeah, because that's right off the headers. But I know from the ZX10 project, because that was a 4-to-1, and that one was painted, and I did all that as well because it was all rusty and crusty. I think I mentioned in the other video I did the can as well, the aluminum can. I used a different paint, that VTH stuff from, I think it's called, from the auto parts store, but it took forever, and I mean forever, for the muffler pipe itself. In other words, from the header, the 4-to-1 header, to where it goes into the bigger pipe and into the muffler, to get to that point right there. I mean, I rode this bike a number of times. In fact, I did that, running it for a while, and it kind of smoked off, and, we got a certain amount of material changing over into what it's supposed to be for its permanent state, I guess that'd be off-gassing. And then I rode it down the driveway. As you saw, my driveway shell, and all those shells stuck to the pipe, so I had to clean that up and repaint some of that on that bike, which is something I didn't want to deal with on this one, which is hence why I'm trying this. But this pipe probably not even going to get to that point as far as the temperature unless you're really hammering it, and it would have to be fairly stationary. Like if you're revving it up, I think you'd get this part up to about 300, but back there, I seriously doubt it, especially on dual exhaust. where it's 4:2 instead of 4:1. So yeah, I think we're actually going higher than the heat would be normally when we're cooking it, or if we just put it on the bike in its freshly painted state and use the exhaust heat to cure it up. So I think this is actually a pretty good way to do it. 288 in the middle right now, 290. We're approaching that 300 again. You know, it's cooler down this end. It's kind of weird because it's closer to the source. But then again, I think it doesn't have enough time up here to get that hot. Whereas down here, the airflow probably slows down but stays hot. And therefore heats the material up a little bit more. That's the theory at least. But it doesn't really matter as long as it's relatively consistent. Over here it's a little more difficult to get. But it's showing a lot lower. But it's I think it's the reflection off of there or the shape of it. 200, that'll work. Alright, so we'll come back to it and see how it goes. How goes it? Here's kind of a good before and after. This, of course, is the other one. This would be the first one I painted, actually. And haven't done that heat treating yet, so you can see the difference. This is, of course, after it's been treated, so it gets more flatter. More flatter. And you can tell if you just kind of run your fingernail across it that that is definitely harder. Now, I think the more heat cycles this gets, the harder it's even going to get. I don't know if I'd run this one or the cooked ones through a heat cycle again or not. I'd probably just put them on and let the engine do it at that point, because we're fairly protected, I think, from getting damage from installation, because this paint's very vulnerable when it's not cured like that. At least, you know, I think if you let it set a month or something like that, it would probably harden up pretty good. But, you know, because I've used heat-resistant paint on stuff that's not even it's designed for. And I'll show you a good application for it. The PJ1, the 500 degree, so it's the engine paint, the same stuff that I used here. And it works really good, believe it or not, on plastic. This would be technically the left side cover / water pump / something or other on the Magna, as far as the parts fish description goes. And this was all faded, you know, plastic. I painted this months ago with that PJ1. The satin, it's a satin engine paint. Same engine paint on the VFR. And look at this. I mean, this stuff is great. It holds up, it sticks, and I didn't have to heat treat this at all. Of course, it's only a 500 degree variety, but so you can use it in different applications, and it's quite successful when you do that. I will show you another one here that works very well for what I was just talking about on plastic. Now, this is the wrong color, it's silver, but this Duplicolor engine paint, enamel, engine enamel with ceramic, withstands heat up to 500 degrees, so it's, I guess, it's comparable to that PJ1 product. This stuff works great on plastic. I don't know why, but it does. I've used the black color of this stuff on a couple of different plastic spray paint jobs. One of them was on the ZX-10 on the tail section, you know, the rear fender tail section, and that was super faded. It came out great. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of cans of this in black, and I'm going to paint this, the whole rear fender section. I'll show you that when I do it, but again, this paint here, it's engine enamel with ceramic, 500 degree, but in it's like a satin black. Well, I think it sprays out satin because same deal, it reacts to the heat and maybe changes color. But in this application on plastic, as long as you prep it really good and you get a little bit of a tooth in it with some, you know, for example, the Scotch-Brite pads, and then you clean it super, super good. And then, you know, don't rehandle it with bare hands, use gloves. Set it up, paint it, no primer, no nothing. You know, just as, what is his name? Derek rather, from Vice Grip Garage says, he goes, tss, tss, tss. You just do that, it'll come out good. I'm going to get these stickers off. I actually have some replacement stickers that I got in from the kid that sold it to me. This is also interesting that, I'll show you this, well, you know, I'm killing time while we're cooking that thing. The emissions, or vacuum hose rather, routing diagram. California vehicle? I don't think so. This does not have, nor does it have any evidence of having the charcoal canister or anything like that. Now, I don't know if they put this on here on all of them, in case it is a California vehicle, but I wouldn't think they did. So either this is a replacement fender, or there's been some tomfoolery afoot on that bike over the years as far as factory deleting goes. But like I said, there was no even remote evidence of that. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to show you that. So that paint works really good, really well on plastic. PJ1 and this stuff. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. It sticks really well as long as the prep work is done, you know. So keep that in mind if you're going to do a plastic painting project. It works great. Okay, so this one is not getting dulled out, it's getting shinier, and I know from experience that's because this is too hot now. So we're gonna throttle this back. I think that's too much heat because the material is too thin, and that's why it's getting real shiny. I saw that happen on the ZX10 exhaust when I was running it on the bike, as I said before. That's probably why I picked up all these shells, you know. And so we're gonna run this longer and lower, kind of like when you're smoking your meat. Running full bore, it's 300 degrees average. A little hotter there, a little cooler there. So in the middle, it's like around 300. So we're just going to let her cook here again for a while. And she's looking pretty good. I like the way it looks so far. I think he's looking for a good place to take a dump. Alright, let's take a look at some results here. We already saw the main tube, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, the muffler tube that goes from the header to the muffler. This has RML, so this is the left side, and this would be the, this is the left side muffler tube. It doesn't have an L on it, but 06 and the other one's an 07. So this is the number I was talking about in the last video. Nothing comes up a hit on, but I did email Supertramp about that. We'll see what they say. Anyway, yeah, I like the finish. As you can see, it's different, and that's because of the surface texture. I don't care what paint it is. The rougher the texture, the duller the finish is going to be. And, you know, I wanted a dull finish anyway because I'm dull, number one. And number two, because of the imperfections on here, you know, the shininess is going to bring that out. It's kind of like why they use flat or eggshell or matte paint inside your house and use texture on the walls because it blends everything in. So yeah, I kind of like it. Now, I'm not going to do this one today because I need to paint the other trumpet, the other muffler, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. You know, this housing, this case, I'll show you. So there's a comparo of sort of before and after. Yeah, it would have been nice to keep the aluminum. If that one was as nice as this one is, I would have just polished them up and kept them this way. But that one being so damaged, it just wasn't practical to do. I got a little bit more work on that. And then I'll paint it, and we'll cure that one in the method that you saw me do on this video, which I think proves this out. There's nothing wrong with this at all. And I read about it, never tried it, so I put this in the beginning of the video, and I'll say it now verbally. Do this at your own risk. I'm a dummy sometimes, and sometimes I do stupid things. Now, this may or may not be a stupid thing. I guess time will tell. But again, do this if you do it yourself at your own risk, because I don't want to be blamed for anybody getting burnt or any fires starting or anything like that. So, okay, so that's it. Not much more to say. I've already said what I need to say, except if you like what you saw, definitely consider liking the video and consider subscribing. That helps me out. Doesn't cost you a cent. And if you ring the bell, ding, on the channel, you get notified when I put up other content like this, in particular on this VFR project, which more content is forthcoming. So, as I always say, don't just repair, restore, and we'll catch on. Oh, no. We warned you. Look, can't we talk about this? Oh, come on, man. No, you don't need to do this. No, come on, no. Ugh.